Hello and welcome. I'm Paul Amos, founder of The Redeemed, and welcome to the Redeemed Man podcast. The Redeemed is all about bringing men into community, helping them understand that together we are stronger than alone, and that together we can thrive in life. Accountability, but also a beautiful journey that helps us celebrate both life's accomplishments and overcoming its difficulties. Today, we are excited to have Evan Lanier on the show. Evan is an accomplished filmmaker and also a huge creative, something that I do not possess. So I am excited about this conversation. I'm excited about hearing about your journeys around the world and all of your exploits. So Evan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Well, by means of background, if you don't mind, we'd just love to jump in and hear a little bit about your story. What brought you to the place that you are in terms of your faith and just kind of teetering up the next part, which will be how God blessed you with creativity so that you could use that and bring things alive for people around the world.
Cool. I mean, nothing crazy. It's been, grew up in Alabama, grew up in around the Alex City, Lake Martin area. Most of my life, my dad was a music minister, youth minister my whole life. I started playing drums in church at 13 and been involved and still playing now. And so kind of grew up in that atmosphere, Southern Baptist Church in a small town, Alabama. And after being in college for a year or two, I was saved. I was 12 when I was saved. I was at Shaco Springs RA camp back in 1994. Out of high school, worked at a couple of different churches and city things there locally with kids, and did a little bit of youth ministry out of college with high school students and stuff. But got married in 2009, and my wife and I worked at a Christian camp. So I've pretty much been in ministry in some capacity since I got out of college. Worked at a church out of college, got married, we moved to a Christian camp and worked there. Then I had the opportunity to be a tech director at a church in the Panhandle of Florida about 2 years after we got married. She was the children's director there, and I was the tech director. And it was great. We were there about 5 years. And the last couple of years, everything was great there at the church, but I'd started doing video. I picked up a camera. I went to Best Buy and decided I'd toyed around with some graphic design. I saved up some side gig stuff I was doing and graphic design work, and went to Best Buy and bought a camera. Didn't know anything more than just watching some YouTube videos of what I wanted. So in 2012, I bought a camera at Best Buy and started fiddling around with filming stuff, just kind of getting creative with some testimonies and different things we were doing at the church. And God just started kind of working that creative mind in me to capture stories and see how he was working in people's lives and be able to share that. I had a crazy opportunity that God literally just dropped in my lap that I never would have. I didn't even do anything to make it happen. In 2014, we were still at the church there, and I had a camera 2.5 years, maybe not even that long at that point. And there was a family who was in the church who had family members that were overseas, actually in doing ministry. They were missionaries in the West Bank. They were home on furlough. And they're like, "Hey, my family's coming home. Can you do some video with them for like fundraiser, informational stuff for their ministry?" I was like, "Yeah, sounds great. Let's talk when they get here." So they got there, and we talked after church one Sunday, and they're asking me some things. I was like, "Let's get together sometime while you're here. We can shoot an interview with you." And they're like, "Why don't we just bring you over for a week, and you spend a week with us, and we can just show you what we do and how God's working." And so I went to the West Bank for a week, and that was not my first mission trip. It was we went on a small like Mexico trip. We drove to Mexico when I was in college for a thing with the church, but that was really my first international mission trip, ministry trip. And so I got on the plane. They were already over there. I got on the plane by myself and flew to Israel. Then they picked me up, and we went over to the West Bank. And spent a lot of time just seeing how God was using them to minister to Muslim families in the West Bank. And so really, I mean, that was that was really when God really started kind of pricking my heart for that avenue. Like, how can I use this desire, creative desire, and this this ministry aspect, which is not traditional, it's not a normal ministry opportunity type thing that most people think about. But how could I use that for kingdom work? And so began working through things with the church, just trying to figure out where I was supposed to be and how God was calling me to where He wanted me. And so we moved to Oxford, Alabama about 10 years ago, and I've been doing video full time since then. Over the past few years, the ministry opportunities and ministry aspect has really, that's where my heart is. That's where I'm called to be, taking the gifts that I'm given and using those for the kingdom. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, Jesus was a storyteller, and in many ways, you are the modern storyteller, bringing that out. Not necessarily in the classic format, but in the new format these days. At what point during that journey, growing up in the church, did you find that you were creative? Was it around playing the drums in the band? Was it music that first brought it out of you?
Yeah. Yeah, it was probably music. My granddad bought me a drum set. He was very gracious to get me a drum set and send it to my house with my parents at home, not his house. And I lived in town. We lived in like downtown, like with their houses like 60 or 70 feet from my bedroom. Mm-hmm. And so I could practice, during the day. I had to practice drums during the day because everybody in the neighborhood could hear. But, I would say probably music started it. That was the first. I was 11 at the time. I went to the community college there in Alex City for a couple of years, played in the band and everything, and then went to UNA actually to pursue music production, entertainment. The technical, I think, degree was entertainment industry management, but it was really music, kind of the music field is what I wanted to do. But that was in 2003, right when Napster kind of hit the scene, and the music industry was kind of flipped upside down, and I didn't really want to be stuck in that specific industry at that time. Kind of wanted to open my options up, so I finished up with just a business degree. And but yeah, the music, I never dreamed that I'd be doing the little bit of graphic design stuff that I did, and then the video and photo stuff that I'm doing now. Didn't go to school for it. Don't have any formal training in anything, but God can provide opportunities without that stuff.
Okay, so you then make the journey. You kind of evolve through the church, and you find this camera. And how quickly did you see not only yourself begin to blossom, but the world through the lens of a camera?
Yeah, I mean, so I got the camera in 2012. I started doing the work at the church and began working through some things there, filming testimonies and stories and things like that. And I started to enjoy it, but I was really learning at the time. I'm still learning. But at that time, I was really green. I didn't have the technical skills really, or the creative skills. I was growing that skill. So I think it was really about 3 years later. So I got the camera the first main camera at the beginning of 2012, and then we left the church. My wife and I both quit our jobs at the same time and moved from Panama City up to Alabama. So it was a big break. We were both quitting our full-time positions. She didn't have a job. I was going to be working, and it was one of those things like you always think, oh, I'll have my my side gig will take the place, and when it takes the place, then I can pull away the other one. Well, when you're working full-time, it's hard to have enough time for that side gig to fill the gaps enough that you can replace it with the other one. So you almost have to take that leap. And we went to something I do not recommend you do unless you're willing to take some kind of leap. We did Not a Fan, Crazy Love, and Radical as our small group at home, back to back to back. And we were leading the group. We started out with Not a Fan, and then those three studies together with our small group at our house that we were leading. We were trying to challenge other folks, and it was like, man, God's just this isn't for anybody. I mean, maybe somebody else, but this isn't for them. This is for us. Like God's really wanting us to step out and do something that is just put faith in Him to provide. And we went to a conference, and it was like one of the guys we went to a Catalyst conference with the church staff in 2015, and the guy was like talking directly to us. It felt like, and God was just using all that stuff to confirm what He was doing in my wife and I, and didn't know what it was going to look like. I knew, weddings was something that I enjoyed. I felt like I creatively was able to tell the story of a wedding day of a couple. Love it when I've been able to work with Christian couples and things like that. So it's been cool. I'm still doing some, not doing as many as I used to, but for about 4 or 5 years, that was my main thing. That trip to the West Bank in 2014 kind of started the thought process, but then God just continued to use different people and different small groups and different conferences and everything to kind of speak into us to confirm the direction He was giving us at that time. And I guess over the past 10 years, there's been some key things that have made an impact. 2017, I got to go through a death of a friend who was a missionary in Uganda. I was connected with a ministry, and I was able to go to Uganda in 2017 and film some stories there. And I've thankfully been able to go back to that same spot with that same ministry every year, except for 2020. I didn't go in 2020. But I did go twice in 2019, and so I've been basically every year. Just got back actually a few weeks ago, and been able to see God at work there with the people and develop some long-term relationships, people that I've known for 10 years, or 8 years. And the last, I guess, 4 or 5 years, God's really been working in me that the ministry portion of it, like the video, the creative aspects of I still work with some businesses that I'm creating content for their business or weddings and things like that. But really the ministry and the mission part of it, the kingdom work, is really where my heart is. And that's really what I'm trying to focus my energy and efforts into. I'm at the point right now, like God's opening some doors, and I just want to step through the doors that He opens. There's some things that are in the works right now with our ministry, and it's taking the step. It's God opening the door, and I feel like He's saying, I've got this door open for you to take the step through. And a lot of times we want to have the provision on the front end. It's like, okay, I'll do it, but show me where the provision for me to follow that is, and I'll do it.
Yeah.
But it's I kind of feel like convicted that it's the other way right now. There's things like, I don't know how that's going to allow me to provide for my family, or I don't know how that's going to allow me to further the ministry. What's it? I'm giving it all away. I just got to step through the door and do it. But then God's consistently provided when I've been obedient. And so right now we're just in that season of kind of stepping through those doors and trusting God to provide as a family and as a ministry as we grow.
That's awesome. All right, I'm going to make a stereotype comment. Okay. You tell me where I'm right or wrong. Okay. You started your journey telling beautiful stories of happiness, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, weddings in and of themselves are supposed to be these culminating positive experiences. And then you go home and with your wife and you realize that half of what your mama told you wasn't true, and you got to figure out how to make a real life out of it. But in that moment, that fairy tale that everybody wants to see, you're seeing something positive. You then go to the West Bank, you go to Uganda, you go other places, and I can imagine where you can find true beauty in it over time. You're also looking at it through the lens of some tragedy, some difficulty, some sadness. How did you evolve, and how personally do you like to look at the story so that you're capturing something that is truly real?
One of the things in Uganda, the second trip we went on, we spent time in the refugee camps in northern Uganda. The South Sudanese refugees were there. And I sat outside of 3 guys individually at their little small compound that they were given from the UN and the Ugandan government for them to live. They'd come, and they were in the process of, they were leading a church as a pastor, but they were in the process of getting trained or getting kind of vetted to be trained. And so we interviewed some of those people. Some of them were leading they were already leading. They were already leading a church or starting a church under a tree, something like that. Churches don't look, they don't, it's not looking like what we have here. It's like maybe a mud hut, if that. Most of them are just a gathering under a tree. But to hear, one guy in particular, he was from Sudan, actually, not from South Sudan, but he had come, he said he had fled. I was filming his testimony, and he said, I've fled with my family through the bush, fled for our life 3 times in the last year, hiding from the rebels or the army that was chasing the people out. And he was so thankful to be where he was. And all of them were so passionate about what they were doing, but also excited that God was giving him this opportunity in that moment, because all the different tribes are there in the refugee camp together, multiple tribes together. Whereas if they were up in South Sudan or Sudan, they would be more dispersed. There's opportunities for them to reach multiple tribes in the refugee camp, but they were all ready to go back and take the gospel back to their people. They were excited to be there, to be trained and to learn more and to be educated, to then take it back home when they get to go back. And so, like, the positivity through the tragedy that they've been through. I mean, South Sudan was just ripped apart in the, I guess, mid 2010s, 10 or 12, 13 years ago. It's just ripped apart, and it's still pretty dangerous and pretty rough up there. Very, very dangerous. I've not been to South Sudan, but I've been to the edge of it. So hearing those stories, just like, it's encouraging. I've gone some other places, and it's not, I mean, in my photography and video mind and creative, I've always liked to go. I've always liked to travel and see places. I love going to the national parks and things like that. Like, it's not all ministry. Like, there's definitely ministry that is part of it, but I've just got a natural desire that God's given me to explore. Yeah. And so that kind of leads into the personal desires that I have, feed into the things that the skills God's given me. So they kind of go together. It's not, I sometimes fight, like, I want to go here and do this fun thing because it's a beautiful place that I want to go explore. And it's not a bad, like, that's not a negative thing. It's a positive, because God's given me that desire plus the ministry desire, and I can put those together. I think seeing those stories, I'm encouraged when I go to see people in different places and how God is working so differently. We did some stuff with some pastor training in Thailand last year and in 23, and there was a guy there who, he and his wife and son have a church in Pakistan, and just, I'm still in communication with them on Facebook and stuff, and just see the photos of God working there. Where for us here in the U.S., we think that God is absent sometimes in those places, but how, even though it's a very hard place to be a believer, that's where it's growing. That the harder it is, you're not going to do it unless you're really all in. You can't be a Christian by name only. You're not going to waste your time if you're just doing it. Like, in the States, a lot of times they'll say, well, we're Christians because my parents went to church, and sure, it's the culture. But when you're in places like that, you're either all in or you're going to be doing something else. You're not going to be countercultural unless you really believe in the things that you are saying you believe in.
Yeah, your life's at risk, right?
It is, yeah. And so I'm just so encouraged when I see those people truly living out their faith in a place where it's not easy to do. So
that's a beautiful depiction you give. I think about some of the places in the world, and we've talked about the West Bank. We've talked about Uganda. Give us two insights here. What is another place that told you a story that keeps you going, that inspires you to continue to tell stories? And then where do you desire to go tell the story of next?
In 2023, we got the opportunity to go down to Ecuador and work with a couple of missionaries there. And one was great. We got to work with some local church leaders and a kind of a more poverty-stricken area. Compassion was working with a church there, so that was a cool experience. But the part of it that really opened my eyes up to how we think everybody has access to everything that we have access to find out that is still not the case. There's still so many people who don't have access to the Bible in their language, in their heart language. Mm-hmm. They may have access to it in a language that they speak, but it's not their heart language. And so we went to the Amazon basin.
That's an interesting depiction.
Yeah.
Or distinction. I'm sorry, I didn't mean depiction. Distinction. I never would have thought of that. That's a great.
So I didn't really either. We went down. The missionary that we went with, actually, he'd been there his whole life. He's living in Quito now, but he goes down there periodically. But his parents went with Wycliffe at the same time that the Saints and Eliots went. Saints and Eliots went to this tribe. His family went to this tribe. Very easily could have been switched. His family could have gone to the Wadani tribe that killed the Saints and Eliot men. So they're just down, I think it's like 100 miles from where that happened. And they went to this tribe to first, this was back in the 50s, to first learn the language, learn the people, with the ultimate goal of giving them the scripture. But they had to learn the language, learn the people, learn the language, and then they had to transliterate the language into a written language. Then they had to take that written language and turn it in and translate scripture. So they had the New Testament that they did, and some I think Psalms and Proverbs or something like that they did back in the 60s. But we went, and there in 2023, they were translating the Old Testament currently from the original text into the local language, the local Kofan language. They didn't have the Old Testament in their language. They had it in Spanish, which a lot of people could speak Spanish, but it wasn't their native language. And so the just seeing how God is still there's still people in the world that their access to the gospel is limited.
Yeah,
it still takes people going and doing that frontier work to enable them to have access to the gospel.
So where's next, or where is the one you dream about telling the story of most?
So let me go back a little bit and talk about, so in 2017 I had that opportunity to go to Uganda. Mm-hmm. I had the opportunity to go multiple places, and I don't want to take away from the need and the role we have here at home. Like, we're not supposed to, everything's not over there. Like, everything's not somewhere else. We have a responsibility here at home to share the gospel, to be involved in a local church, to be involved in ministry here at home. But I know that God has given special and specific direction to different people for different purposes. And I am confident that He's given me the desire and the direction to spend most of my time away from home, working with people. And so in 2017, I had that opportunity to go to Uganda. Had a few more opportunities over the years. And all that while, I've got some friends that I've have different relationships with that had done a little bit of other things similar. So they'd gone to China or to Honduras or to Kenya or to South Africa, working with some different ministries or activities and things like that. And so in 23, on that trip to Ecuador, there were a couple of us together, or three of us together, and we got done and we're like, man, this is something I wish we could do more of. And we all kind of had the same desire, and we had been doing it individually, doing the ministry work. Basically, our calendars were full, and if we had a window of time here and there, we could squeeze in ministry work or a trip to go somewhere. And in that trip, we got back and we started talking, and we're like, if we could put this all together and create something that would give us an avenue to tell more stories, to do bigger projects with more needs, and more effectively and efficiently do the work that we're called to do. And so in that, we decided to start, we filed for our nonprofit status, came up with a ministry name and everything like that. And in 2023, the summer of 23, we got everything filed and approved. And so it's called 5-9 Creative. It comes from Revelation 5:9, which is talks about every tribe, every language, every people and nation. Our goal is gospel proclamation is the ultimate goal, but is to create content for ministries and with ministries to help further the gospel, whether that's support for them, whether that's sharing testimonies of God working in that place, whether that's educational, informational content, things like that. So all of that has been working over the past couple of years, and it's growing, and we are excited about what's coming up. Next, I'm going to South Africa and Eswatini in a month with a team to do some pastor training. Likely, not 100% confirmed right now, but likely going to Central Africa about a month after that for another project, and potentially going back to South Africa for another project in November. So it'd be nice if I could connect all these together to go across the Atlantic one time. But it's not my schedule. It's everybody else's schedule, so sometimes it doesn't connect. But literally, those are the next steps this year. It's a lot of times I don't know what's coming up next. I'm like I said, I really am stepping through the doors that God opens. I had an opportunity a few years ago. This guy who I'm Facebook friends with messaged me one night and said, "Hey, I've got a project in a Aborigine village in Northern Australia that I was supposed to have somebody shooting for me, and he can't go. It's in 10 days. Can you go?" I was like, looked at the calendar. I was like, yeah, I can actually do it. Let's go. So 10 days. I mean, so what's next? I don't know. It could be anything. I'm excited and anxious kind of to see where God is leading us. Right now, so there's 4 of us that founded the ministry. Right now, we're all working full time in some other capacity. So, one person, Katie, is on staff at a church, and Jeff's working full time. Blake's working full time. I'm the only one that's really full time in the creative space and in running my own business. But eventually, we want to get to the point where we can have staff that are full time. Right now, I'm probably 60% time as of right now with that. But our goal is to be able to grow that where we have staff that are full time, that are dedicated to going to different places around the world and capturing those stories. I don't want to stop doing it. I don't want to manage it and let other people do it. I want to be the one going. But one of my desires too is to expose my family. So thankfully, I've gotten the opportunity to take the kids. I've got 4 kids. I got a 12, 11, 7, and 2-year-old right now. And my wife and I have been married for 16 years. And over the past few years, we've had the opportunity to take them over to different places. My brother-in-law and sister were serving with Samaritan's Purse in Papua New Guinea for a couple of years.
Sure.
They just came back this past May, but we went and saw them. We took the family to see them. Got to do some filming while I was there with a mission hospital and everything, and that was great. But they've gone there. They spent, I think my 7-year-old's been to, we were looking at his passport the other day when we were coming back from Uganda. He's been to Uganda 5 times in the past 3 years because looking at his visas. So taken the family there. I've taken my older son, to Thailand with me on some of that those projects. Taking my daughter to Guatemala. Taking my other son he went to Ecuador with us on that original trip in 23. And traveling, not just taking them. We've done some cool stuff. We've stopped over in Egypt. We've done Paris. We've stopped on the way to and from places. We've done road trips around the country. Part of that natural desire to travel. I've done all 50 states and done 43 countries, and just some of it's fun, some of it's ministry related, but taking the family and exposing them to God working overseas, and not just showing them that everything revolves around what we know here in the U.S. or in Alabama, but to expose them to how God is using different people in different places. Yeah. And it's really opened I feel like it's given them a totally different worldview. It's opened their eyes up to how God is working, but also just how people live, and how blessed we are, but also how blessed they are in different ways. We think, I think in America, we think the more stuff you've got, the more blessed you are. But that's not necessarily the case, and we can see that in places where the kids go and people have a lot less, but they're a lot happier. Yeah. So the next thing, I guess, is just to continue to instill that in them and continue to grow continue to follow God's direction and just be willing to go wherever he leads.
That's beautiful. In 2014 and 2015, my family had the opportunity to move to Japan. And while Japan is very first world, it is not Christian at all. Mm-hmm. In fact, you mentioned Samaritan's Purse. Franklin Graham was in Tokyo at the Budokan, and my third son, Knox, gave his life to Christ in Japan at that event. And so it was really neat, and what a special thing. But while we were there, we allocated, budget-wise, a lot of money to, as a high percentage, we should say, to traveling all over Southeast Asia and seeing how the rest of the world lives. Yeah. Because reality is, in America, we should have so much gratitude for what we've got. And I think, unfortunately, we're very insular at times. We're very accepting, but we're very insular in the world. If you turn on the news here, the news is all about what's happening in the U.S. But when we live overseas, you start to get a very different perspective of America, and you see how big the world is. I would imagine for your children, they have a very global, or beginning to have a very global view.
Yeah, and that's something too. When you go, when you're there, you realize that the information that you hear here, not that it's inaccurate, but it's very narrow in its scope. Like the way they portray, for instance, Japan or Southeast Asian countries or Africa. Like when you think of, people here think of going to Africa and like everybody's Papua New Guinea. Mm-hmm. Everybody's scared that you're going there and they're cannibals. Mm-hmm. Like that's what you hear. That's what you've heard. But the people are great. Like you going and being able to experience the people and experience the place and get to know the people, you realize that people are people. I mean, I sat in a house with a Muslim family in the West Bank that we randomly showed up looking for a friend at these people's house. They invited us in, gave us coffee. The lady brought these homemade desserts that she had made, like welcomed us in. Didn't know us at all. Nicest people. I've been places in Africa, and man, it's hard. And a lot of times in Uganda, you go, or in other places in Africa too, you go and they want to give you, like you're like a honored guest, and they want to, feed you and provide, which monetarily is a sacrifice for them. And you're like, no, don't, you don't have to do that. But they're so gracious and they want to do that. Yeah. And so that's something you don't watch the news and get that. You don't hear that from, and Southeast Asia. I mean, being in different places in Southeast Asia, the people are so honorable, like the honor system, the honor shame, the honor they give to people. It's people are great. everywhere. I think it's the same thing in the U.S. People, you go outside of the U.S. and other people associate what they hear, which is pretty much political news, is what they hear about the U.S. So they assume, it's easy to assume that everybody's that way, but it's not. It's not that way. And so what you hear of the conflicts or the struggles going on in these places, a lot of times those are isolated to the leadership or the army or they may be affecting the people, but the people who on their daily lives are great people. Mm-hmm. And you can see how the culture is totally different, but they are, for the most part, what I've found is gracious people and friendly people. But so many places also, I remember going, I'd been in Uganda. This was in 2019, I think. I'd been in Uganda for about 2 weeks, and I wanted to stop. I always flown through Amsterdam. I've been through Amsterdam so many times, and I wanted to stop. I've never been outside the airport. So I did like a 3-day stopover in Amsterdam. And I remember, you go to Uganda, dark, it's supposedly dark, gospel-less place that God is not there. And yet God is working in the place that I've gone, and I see God at work through the missionaries, but also through the locals there. But I stepped foot in Amsterdam, and the darkness of the absence of the gospel was overwhelming. After being in Africa, where you think they have nothing, in Amsterdam they got everything physically, but just I stepped out of the train station there and down the main central part of Amsterdam, and it was just like, man, this place is so post-Christian that not that God's not working and can't work, but he's been removed from so much stuff here. We went on a boat tour, and they were showing the churches and the chapels and everything, or the cathedrals, and like this church or cathedral had been turned into like a performing arts center, and like this one was like a community center. So like even the churches had pulled away from that was the place that people went to get away from the oppression of the church in England back in the Middle Ages. Mm-hmm. And that was the place they went to have freedom and worship. But yet God is working there, but it's very post-Christian. And so it's hard. Like you just, your eyes are opened up to a lot of things as you go and experience different places. So
absolutely. I mean, I think about the fact that my perception is that in a lot of places in the world, when you have an abundance, you don't feel the need for God as much. And so God really shows up in places where the need is great. I mean, and look at Jesus's past and his path. He went to the poor. He went to the greatest in need, and that's who he appealed to first. The opposite of what the church, the synagogue, the Jewish faith had tried to do before. And so that is a passionate place to go, and that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you have everything you need, it's hard to look past that stuff and see your need for God to provide. Mm-hmm. I think people's initial needs are food and shelter and everything like that. So if you have that stuff, if you're rich in material things, you don't need God. You got your own. You can do it yourself. Why do I need God to do this for me? I got everything I need. I think that rich young ruler thing. I mean, he had everything he needed. He just didn't have Jesus. Yeah. And he said, "Okay, well, be willing to give up this stuff and come follow me." Yeah. And I think that's the same thing. We struggle, Americans in the West, the not just the West, but the modern world, the places where people have many material things. It's easy for us to say, I don't want to give up this stuff to give my life to Christ. Not to saying that you can't have material things and follow Christ, but that can't be your primary focus.
Sure. And if you look at the statistics here in the United States, I mean, we're seeing huge rise, especially among men, in loneliness, depression, even addiction. And, part of what we do here at the Redeemed is bring men together, because community in many ways is one of the ways to break down those walls, to break down those barriers. And while you go to these foreign countries and you can't always find gigantic communities, it's within the small communities. I mean, you think about most of Paul's letters were to small churches that were budding and growing throughout Europe and the beginning of Eurasia. And so I absolutely believe that community helps change not only one person, but the whole.
Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff you mentioned is a situation where people are looking for something to fill that void.
Yeah.
And it's not, you can't fill it with anything. You can always have more stuff, but the more stuff you get, the more stuff you want. It's an endless cycle. You can climb a ladder of success and get to the highest point, but you still don't ever feel that hole or that need for gospel community and for Christ. And so, yeah, I think that epidemic that we have in the world of, I mean, it happens in other places. Even when people don't have stuff, they're always trying to fill it with something else. It's some other religion, or it's drugs and alcohol, or it's women and adultery type stuff, like multiple wives, or just not fidelity in marriage, or they're always looking for something to please themselves, to fill that hole. And it's easy in the U.S. and other modern countries where the norm is to amass as much as you can to be happy.
Yeah.
And my wife was in Uganda a couple of years ago talking to a lady, and she said how blessed you are to come here and see how we rely on God for our every need.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to.
It really says it all. I mean, it really does.
And that was from her. She's like, you're blessed to come see me. And I mean, there's many people that they're like, we'd love to go to the U.S. and visit and see the U.S. But I'm like, man, what you have, they're happier and they're more joyful in their faith and in God's provision for them than a lot of people that I see on a daily basis around here.
Wonderful. Well, second to last question for you. Where can people get information about 5-9 Creative and hear some of the stories that you're sharing?
Yeah, so the website, 59creative.org. So it's the number 5, the word 9, creative.org. We're on YouTube, lots of stuff on YouTube. So our YouTube channel has a playlist from partner stories, and there's tons of stuff there you can go listen to. There's some stuff that's not public because of the people that we're working with, location-specific things. We don't want to expose some of their vulnerabilities.
Oh, I get
where
that.
They are.
That makes sense.
Different places in the world. And there's some stuff that we do that just doesn't work on YouTube. But YouTube's a great spot to watch a lot of it. We're also on social, Facebook and Instagram, 5-9 Creative. And that's YouTube's probably the best way, or the website is a great way to connect. YouTube or the website is a great way to connect and find our stuff.
You mentioned a couple of times about people bringing you into their home, feeding you. Jesus throughout his life, breaking bread was an important part. The Last Supper is one of the culminating events prior to, of course, his crucifixion. And so as an Epicurean and a foodie, I have to ask, what is the favorite thing you've eaten that you never expected? And what was the thing that you'll leave behind that you may not want to eat again?
I didn't expect this, but when I went to the West Bank in that region, I honestly could go back there and just go for a month just to eat. The food, like we went to Bethlehem and we ate at this little hole-in-the-wall place. And I was actually talking to somebody else who'd been to Bethlehem, and they'd gone to the same, inside, back in this stone. It looked like it'd been from the 1400s or something. It was back in this stone building, almost under a cave, in a cave thing. But it was we had all this genuine Mediterranean food that it was so good. Mm-hmm. That's probably one of my favorite places. Being in Thailand and eating at the street markets. Yeah. My son was there with me last year, and we'd go every night to the street market, and it's you get whatever you want. It's $1 or $2. He's like, can I have? He's like, I'm like, you try that and try that. If you don't like it, we'll get something else. But they had so much stuff that was out there, and it's all so good. And you just walk around and try all the stuff that you can. Stuff that I didn't know that I would like. I've had some different things. We eat a lot of goat in Uganda. There's actually, so when I first started going, we would stop. We'd have a team. Well, I would typically travel with a team the first few times. And the ministry would stop at this Western roadside restaurant, gas station thing to get some food, because it was kind of something comfortable for the people to get something they sort of knew what it was. And then I went a few years later, and I was just with one of the missionaries, and we stopped at one of the pull-offs, and you get flooded with people with all kind of stuff they want to sell you through the window. And they had meat on a stick that they've been roasting on the fire on the roadside. And it was really good.
Oh, wow.
So the next time we went, I'm like, when our church group went, the next time we took some folks with us, and I was like, we're not stopping at that place. I want them to get the experience of getting the car getting rushed, and everybody handing you all these sticks. And a guy with me was like, they had all this goat on a stick, and it's like it's just like 25 roasted sticks of meat, and it's like goat on a stick. And everybody's grabbing something. He's like, I want beef on a stick. He's like, oh, here, this is beef. I'm like,
goat.
It's goat. It's just this is what you want. I'll give it to you. It's actually really good. We had some the other day. My kids, we were driving to the airport, and we stopped there and got some meat on a stick, and the kids were like tearing it up in the back seat. That's and awesome. It's made on these sticks they got off the side of the road. They sharpened and roasted it over the fire, and you don't know what pieces you're getting. There's usually, out of the 5 pieces you get, there's usually 2 or 3 that are pretty good, and 2 or 3 that may be some gristle or whatever in it. But
Well, Evan, thank you so much. Thank you for not only coming here today and sharing and taking your time to sacrifice for us, but also for the stories you're telling and what your ministry is doing and how you're bringing alive into us here locally the stories from around the world. And while you can't share them all, and I understand if you're a minister in Pakistan, that's a dangerous place, and some of the things that you've mentioned, I'm just so thankful for you and your ministry, and I hope to continue to stay connected. To our audience, I just want to say thank you for spending your time to listen, to watch, to appreciate what we're trying to do. We at The Redeemed, as we've said, are all about bringing people together, helping you have a community around you to go through life with. And we would encourage you to come to our website, get engaged, look at what we have going on, participate potentially in a small group. I think it will transform you, have a little trust, dive in, and I think it will be meaningful into your life, to your relationships, and well beyond you as an individual. So thank you very much. Godspeed.